Right, yeah. So we're continuing on the theme of AI and anti-establishment and all those kind of cool things. So this afternoon is going to be really interesting. So next up we have Queen. They're going to be talking about taking a stand against the rise of robots. So the talk kind of explores like the more human factors side of cybersecurity and emphasising the exploit gaps in communication, decision making, and organisational processes. Can we have a very warm AUSCERT2025 welcome for Queen?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Do I need to? Oh, thank you. Great. Thanks everyone for joining me today. My name is Queen. Very interesting topic, taking a stand against the rise of robots, but I hope we don't have any protesters with placards here. Just yet. All right, just a few things that we'll run through, just to give you a bit of a few things there to talk about AI, talk about AI at both sides, the defender side and then the attacker side as well. To start off, just so you understand, this is a collaboration between me and my personal assistant, generative AI, some other form of generative AI here. That's what I've tried to do. So I've tried to generate a few images using generative AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, and the rest of them. But then there are also some stats and figures that I have included in this presentation for illustration purposes. So if you do find any errors with the stats, please refer to the owner of the article. But then I'll make my very best to make sure you're clear with what's here. All right. So a bit about me. I work for a cybersecurity consulting firm called Phronesis Security. We're based in Melbourne and Sydney. I'm from Sydney. I love reading books a lot, and I found audiobooks very interesting during COVID when I had to do a whole lot of works thanks to being locked down. I also love lifting weights. I know it doesn't show, but then trust me, I do like lifting weights. I love boxing as well. You can't walk in cyber and not do some sort of exercise, or maybe jiu-jitsu, maybe even ultra marathons and things like that. And so I chose to do boxing, and then I chose to do weightlifting as well. When I'm doing that, sometimes I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks, like I said earlier, and then in my spare time, I also love to teach cybersecurity-related courses. So I'm a sessional academic at Macquarie University, and then a few other sessional engagements as well. In my research, when I was studying, I did a PhD with Macquarie University. I looked a whole lot about the human side of cybersecurity, talking about human aspects. I did the research on cybersecurity strategy, talking about human aspects, cybersecurity behavior, but then from the top to the bottom, understanding how strategies can actually flow, how you can actually have cybersecurity strategies, but not just because you want your employees to follow them, but then things that actually start from the top. So you know that whole thing where we're talking about having senior management buying and all of that. So it starts from the top and then it flows all the way to the bottom. So it's not just about policies. You actually need to make them very practical so your employees can actually follow those policies. All right, so who are you? And that's a little bit about me. You're probably someone who's curious about artificial intelligence. You have to be curious today because it's everywhere. If you buy a new iPhone, for instance, it's already empowered with Apple intelligence. So there's no sort of way for you to actually not use AI in some sort of way. If you're using LinkedIn, whatever social media platforms, even just barely shopping, we're always interacting with artificial intelligence in some sort of way. So you're curious also about the human element and how artificial intelligence also, how that's also affecting the human side of things in cybersecurity. Or maybe you're protesting the use of AI. AI is going to take your job, and so you're wondering what you're going to do about that as well. But then, however you found yourself into this room, you're welcome to sit back and listen. So in trying to I was trying to do a whole history, trying to go back and look at how, where this whole thing with AI sort of like started. I love watching movies. I love a very good sci-fi movie. And then I went back and I was like, when was there ever a time when we had like an artificial intelligence movie made? And the first one there is Metropolis. It was done in 1922. It's very good back then, not now. If you try to watch that right now, it's really crappy. I tried to watch, I didn't even last probably 30 minutes watching the movies, but then it even gets better as we keep going. I think the latest one there is, there's one about 2898. We'll probably get there, but I may not be here, or maybe I might be uploaded into the cloud, I don't know. But then it just gives you this whole thing where we talk about AI, and then it's always AI takes over the world, AI becomes this thing that becomes, it tries to just wipe humans out of the picture and then becomes something else. But then if you think about how we use AI today, that's not the case, but that's the movies. Maybe they're telling us something we don't know yet. I don't know. All right, back to my history lesson. Not going to tell you a whole lot about AI, but then in trying to just understand a little bit about AI as well, I did a whole deep dive, and then I found that even if you trace things back a little bit further to the Greek era, they actually talked a little bit about poets talking about self-moving servants, philosophers philosophizing about the essence of thought itself, things like that. All of that, so just talking about imaginations, you can find all of this, but then you start to get a sense that we've always thought about some sort of artificial intelligence in some sort of way. And then if you bring this further to the academic path, it's where we started thinking about logic and reasoning. Then we're trying to find some sort of digital brain that could actually do what the human brain can do, and then all of these. So we had programmable digital brain, and then some college professor coined the term artificial intelligence, and then it became a thing, and people were like, oh, so there's this thing called artificial intelligence. It's not just human intelligence anymore. We can actually generate a bit more intelligence with that. But then, just to shift gears a little bit, if you think about what I said earlier in terms of my research, I was very, very interested in the human aspects of cybersecurity. And looking through the literature, you can have a look at practitioner articles and even academic articles. There was a whole lot of buzz about the human factors, trying to understand how we can help humans. And then it became this whole quote, I'm guilty of it because I wrote it in my research paper. Humans are the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. You know that thing. It's very nice to just have as a tagline. And so we had that as well. But then even up to 2024, there's still the weakest link. And then in critical infrastructure, of course, that's something where most times you try to have like air gap systems, but then you have a human interacting with some of these systems. And then they were also found to be the weak link as well. And then we have this whole turn right now trying to say, hey, is there some sort of way we can try to make humans a little bit more, like just probably try to empower them in some sort of way? And if you think about it, most times when we talk about things like that, we tend to introduce technology into the mix and say, hey, maybe we should give them some sort of technology or try to use technology to enhance our defenses, which is not a bad idea. But I went back and then I had a look at the data breach investigation report, the one we always wait for every time of the year when it comes and you're like, yes, it's finally there. And you can get all your stats out. So the first picture you see on your, the blue graphs there, that was from 2021. You can actually see how it was breaches involving the human element was actually this very long graph. So there was a whole lot of attacks focusing on the human side of things because it's very easy for you, if you can socially engineer someone, then you can actually get some information out of them or even get access to a system. But then fast forward a little bit to 2024, there you can see phishing is on the decline. Yes, people still get phishes, but then it's becoming not as prominent as we know back in the day. What we are seeing now is a whole lot of credential theft and then exploiting various kinds of vulnerabilities. And then fast forward to 2025, which is the graph you see on the top there, credential-based attacks are actually on the rise, and then the exploit of vulnerabilities. Now, if you ask yourself why all of this is happening, AI. So AI has actually helped to enable attackers in this case, and they can actually now focus on trying to get even more into infrastructures and into systems, even without the help of humans. All right, so what I'll be referring to today is just to look at these adversarial attacks from two standpoints. Like I said, I'm always on the human side, and if you think about how we use systems, there's always some sort of human aspect when we talk about systems. People make these systems, people think about the algorithms, people put systems together, people write the programs, and even though we have artificial intelligence, we have these LLMs, we have all of these wonderful things, but then we still have people behind them writing algorithms, probably writing the codes. And so in some sort of way, there's still a human side. So even every single piece of technology that we're referring to, Now, the other side of it is the computer networks, of course. Like I said, human side, and then we also create these computer networks and systems and things like that. So those are the 2 points that I'll be looking at today when we're referring to AI. So for the first one, for referring to social engineering, it's what we've heard a whole lot of stories. If you were at the keynotes, we're talking about AI, using AI for deepfakes and all kinds of things like that. You may or may not have received some of all these LinkedIn invites where it's very new, fresh profile. They've tried to, almost like a sock puppet LinkedIn account, they've tried to maybe reach out to you and say, hey, would you be interested? Can you send us your CV? Would you click on this link? Would you be interested in this job? You know, things like that, to try and get you, to lure you some sort of way. There was even a time where there was a whole wave of attackers trying to recruit genuine people and get them to say, hey, I'll give you $1 million, for instance, if you would help us deploy this malware within your organization. I mean, you have to be greedy or really hate your organization to say, yes, $1 million is good enough for me to deploy a malware. But then there's been this whole flow and series. And then, of course, we've seen the use of social engineering with AI in deepfake videos, business email compromise, and even we've had Russian aligned, we've had different APTs also trying to use social engineering as well. But then cast your mind back to, say, 10, 20 years ago. When we talked about phishing, for instance, we actually told people, hey, look out for anything that tries to, maybe has some sense of urgency. They try to ask you to give out sensitive information, which is still true today. And then the main thing we're actually highlighting then, we're telling them, hey, look out for misspellings, grammatical errors. You know, these scammers don't know how to spell. They're probably not native English speakers. And so many people were looking out for all of those things when we're referring to phishing emails. But guess what? AI leveled up the playing field. And then what we have today is something very, very interesting. You actually have email communications that are perfectly aligned, and they sound like it's coming from someone within your organization. You actually have to read the email maybe twice, and then like, this is our style, it's even maybe our font, for instance, and you're wondering if it's actually your boss who sent you that particular email. We have voice synthesis as well. There are a few very good case studies that we've heard about in the media recently. But then you could actually, what you tell people previously is, oh, if you get an email, you're not sure, pick up the phone, call the person, you probably have a phone number, don't dial the number on the screen. Fine, that can be spoofed today. Your SIM card can easily be cloned. And so even when you pick up the phone and then you call, it's very easy for you to hear the voice of your CEO or your manager and think that, hey, I think they're the one and they're giving me that authorization to go ahead with that transaction or something, but it's not them. It's some sort of voice tool. And also, we've seen various video manipulations, deepfake meetings and things like that. Also, I think very interesting, real-time chat. So you can actually be chatting. I don't know how many of you go to a website or something and you have this bot that always pops up and, can I help you today? You know, when I hear that, it really annoys me. I'm like, no, if I need your help, I'll click on the button on the right. But then you always hear that, and then sometimes you can actually just have those real-time messages, and that can be also used as well. Now, in talking about deepfakes, there's been several notices that have been sent out. The FBI sent this joint alert, for instance, was sent out in 2023, and they were talking about the rise in deepfake usage. You think about how far deepfake has come. It was from the time when we had that whole Taylor Swift deepfake image that looked very unreal, and people were like, oh, if you look at the eyes, you would know it's deepfake. But now it's not about the eyes anymore. It's way beyond the eyes. I love a very good deepfake. It's nice to have Morgan Freeman read me a bedtime story, for instance, or even have Putin give me GPS directions when I'm driving. They're actually very lovely. There are some creative use of deepfakes, which could actually help. But then, it's becoming an increasing threat that is becoming a little bit expensive and hard to mitigate, because how can you really tell if the person behind the camera or the person behind the phone is who they say they are? So we're getting to a point where you're actually doubting everything you hear and see, and you're questioning them again, which is good. That's what you need as a cybersecurity expert. You need to be a little bit cynical in that sense. I really like this one. When this particular meeting between Trump and Zelensky happened, in a space of 1 hour, there were lots and lots. I had fun looking at all the videos. There were lots and lots of videos out there, and you could actually see like a whole brawl. There was one particular one where the fight was over, and then Putin came and he had a look, and he was like, just different videos like that. But then some of them looked very convincing, depending on the tool you're using. Some of them had 7 fingers, and you're like, yeah, this is fake. It's just too bad. But then initially, when this happened and Zelensky left the White House, people were actually worried. They were not very sure what happened in there. And all these videos started popping out, and they were like, no, this did not happen. There was no real fight between the two leaders. And it's interesting because with all of these tools, we actually see like this whole propagation. With the Australian election, for instance, that just happened, and a few elections happening around the world, people are actually getting concerned. Misinformation, disinformation, for instance. Now, you can say, oh, fine, that's on the political side. I'm not very political, blah, 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 and all of that. But then we've seen, with all the various analysis I've given to you right now, you've seen the shift. It can be within the organization. It could be in the society. But then, shockingly, it could also be very personal. It could be your grandma or your uncle or your loved one receiving a call saying, hey, we have this person in distress, all of this. It's happened, so it's not just about organizations. It's also becoming very personal to us as a society, as a people. Now, this is the biggest and the nicest case study we could ever find for deepfakes, because this was one particular incident where actually deepfake worked and some money got transferred, and everyone goes, if you're talking about deepfake right now, if you do not mention this case, you haven't done the proper research. That's just what it is. So this is the best deepfake case study ever. And what happened with this particular case, you all know the story. I'm not going to bore you and give you all the details. But then what I'm trying to draw your attention to with this particular incident, it happened on the 29th of January, 2024. What happened after that? We had one successful attempt. We have no idea how long it took the attackers to do their own OSINTs, to do everything they did in the background when they eventually went forward with that particular attack. But then we saw others. It's more like, hey, this worked. There was a very huge payout. And then the CEO, Wiz, for instance, they got targeted with a deepfake using his voice. And a couple of employees got this message from the CEO saying, but then many of them listened to it and they were like, there's just something off about this. And most times when that happens, half the time you're right. Also, Ferrari, the same thing. It's just one case after the other. Several employees got messages sent by the CEO via WhatsApp. So if you're thinking, oh, maybe it was Teams, maybe it was Google or something, it's WhatsApp. WhatsApp is in your pocket. Or it could be Signal, it could be Telegram. Pick your social media. And then more recently, we had Accenture, the CEO as well. Someone tried pretending to be an attorney, set up a video call. I was trying to get them to do some financial transactions as well. So you can see, we had one attempt that was successful, and every single criminal decided, hey, I think deepfake pays right now. The same thing happened if you think back to how ransomware started. We had cryptocurrency, and then we had ransomware, and then there were a few payouts, and everybody started doing the whole ransomware thing. And when ransomware stopped working, people started doing double extortion and triple extortion, things like that, to the point where we are right now. So, like I said earlier, it's crazy that we have to actually think about the people we are talking to when we talk to them today. Because if you think about it, we have remote work. We're actually talking to people from across the world, for instance. You have employees who are talking to you from across the world, different parts of the country, for instance, or even within the same state, but then different locations. We've heard about the whole rise in tech IT scams with North Korea having people within the US workforce, for instance, or even across the world. And you're actually not sure. And guess what? While I was trying to do my last minute tweak to my slide, Google launched that one. Like seriously, like we don't have enough tools, and then it's becoming very easy. So if you think about it, we have very low barrier to entry for so anybody could just get some sort of AI tool. Gemini is there, ChatGPT is there, and you have a whole lot of lists to work with. And you can even pay as low as $50, and you can actually just, using someone's LinkedIn profile picture, for instance. I've seen a couple of demos on this, and then I can make a deepfake video, take a voice, if I have a recording of their voice, and it sounds very much like them. And you actually think that, hey, that person said that thing. All right, let's move to the other side of things. If we talk about computer networks on the tech side, same thing, level up. That's what's happening with computer technologies or computer operations. We have this every single vendor. I'm sorry if you're a vendor here, but then that's what it is right now. If you go into, we have AI for detection, for virus. So everything has some sort of AI. Matter of fact, if your product doesn't have AI, you're not going to sell. So it's okay to have them. It's fantastic. But then the same tools that are available to the defenders are also available to the attackers as well. And then we have all of these wonderful benefits. Like you can see, traditional EDRs, it does all of these fun, nice things. But then when you have it AI powered, it becomes even better. It becomes well equipped, like I said. It's a level up. And I found this interesting. Talking about tier lists, everyone loves a good tier list. This was released on Twitter. I have no idea. This is one of those ones where I don't know if it's really Conti ransomware gang who released this. But then if a ransomware gang is actually ranking EDRs, you should be a little bit careful with the EDRs you're using, or maybe take their word for it or not. I have no idea. So the truth is, a whole lot of attackers are leveraging the tools that we also have access to. And they are leveraging AIs for cyber operations. This is making things very easy for them. If you think by having AI within your network, within your defense stack is going to make things easier for your workforce, fantastic. It also makes it easier for the attackers to get in sometimes if it's not properly done. And so a few things that you can look at there when you talk about computer operations and then the attack. Sometimes we have direct compromise of the AI infrastructure. We've seen in the media a few times now, and a few months ago, how the compromise of one very good product, for instance, can cause havoc down the supply chain, down the path. And so it's the same thing that happens with AI infrastructure. For instance, if you can have some sort of access to the model architecture, it just means you have like the blueprints to be able to then exploit that particular AI model when it's thrown to the public as well. The training data as well, if you can find some sort of way to poison the data or even get access to the training data and find some sort of way to manipulate that, the same thing, you can then have access to compromise the AI infrastructure itself. The second point there, automating and professionalized threat actor cyber operations. If you had the keynotes this morning, you heard everything that Palo Alto said, so I'm not going to repeat everything they said, but then what AI has done is to make these attacks, like it has given them speed, some sort of boost. It's like if you ever played maybe like a car race, when you hit nitro and just go, you know, that's what AI has done right now to those attacks. They can actually spin up infrastructures in like split seconds. They have scripting and payload development, and then they can also evade your defense mechanisms when that's there. So thanks to AI, this has made things very easy for them. Now the third point there, specifically for referring to LLMs, because that's what everyone is deploying today. You have to find some sort of way to deploy LLMs within your organizations. If not, your employees are actually going to use them with their devices in their pockets. So what we have there is jailbreaking, prompt injection, and data poisoning, and a few. So I'll zone in a little bit on those, some of those attacks. Oh. Just in case you missed this and then you don't understand what large language models are, this slide is for you. So basically, just for you to understand how these attacks actually work, what you're looking at with LLMs is some sort of sophisticated mathematical function, because it's basically statistics and probability. What you're looking for is when you enter those prompts, the algorithm in the background does all of these calculations, probability maths within those neural networks there, and then it chooses what it feels would be the right answer based on the prompts that you have provided, for instance. And you can do the same thing if we're talking about these various attacks. If you give the same prompt to that particular generative AI a number of times, it tries to find different ways to give you the same answer or even a bit more answers. And that's where you start to get things like jailbreaking, for instance, all of these attacks that we're referring to. With jailbreaking, I found this interesting. I haven't tested this, but then just to show, if you have a look on GitHub, you will find loads and loads of jailbreaking, like prompt injection that have been written. People have written this, they tried it out, they've written for all sorts of generative AI models that are out there. For instance, Gemini 2.5 is out. Of course, someone has already gone to GitHub and then they've updated the codes as well. You can find for ChatGPT, there are lots of them. They have always been updated every time there's a new release into the market as well. So you can have this, and then this can be used to get access to whatever LLMs you're using within your organization. So best to know which ones you're using and then know the various attacks that can be used against them. Prompt injection, quite similar to jailbreaking. This was interesting because last year I attended the Microsoft AI Copilot when they did the launch, I think here in Sydney. And then they came up with this whole fantastic thing saying, hey, Copilot will actually help to simplify and make your workforce very efficient, speed up things, all those lovely things we hear about when we talk about AI within the workplace. And then a few months down the track, you could actually see that now you have this AI Copilot that has access to everything within your infrastructure. What that does is actually helps the attacker to be able to quickly identify or quickly have access to personal information or whatever sensitive information is within your stack, and even exfiltrates that even quickly. Like you've actually given them more time. You've given them, you've enabled them and given them the speed for them to be able to do that. But they said they fixed it. I have no idea. So if you're using Copilot, it's up to you to find out if this has been fixed or not. But then Microsoft said you can actually have AI security for Microsoft 365. And in referring to LLMs, like I said, with data poisoning and data extraction techniques, there are a couple of research out there, like from 10 years ago, before LLMs became very public. You could actually see different research talking about how you can actually inject malicious samples into training data, for instance, how that can then be used to create maybe backdoors within these LLMs, and even various exfiltration for data as well, using APIs, for instance, how many, just a whole lot of research. I'm not going to dive a lot into all of that, but you just get to see that although you have these LLMs, which are fantastic, there are various ways that things can actually go wrong within your stack. So it's not all doom and gloom. When we talk about AIs, they are very fantastic tools for you to work with. The thing is, you have to be cautious when you actually use them. So what would you do? You have the humans who would want to use these LLMs or who want to use these tools, or even your analysts who need some of these things to speed up their alerts so that they can refer to alerts, they can resolve alerts on time. The first thing you can try to do with your users is to have a very good awareness and education program for them. So it's not just, we've talked a whole lot and you've heard this time and time again, it's not just that one annual death by PowerPoint, 30 minutes once a year. It's no longer that, it doesn't cut it anymore. You actually need to do better to address these new tactics that are coming up. For deepfakes, it's very interesting because you need to find some sort of way for your employees to understand, they should even understand how good deepfake have gotten, and probably use that to create your awareness programs for them so they can have an idea. I'll refer you back to the 3 case studies that I referred to for Wiz. The reason why employees knew it wasn't their CEO, the CEO is a very, he said this in the TechCrunch interview, he's a very awkward person, so he doesn't really like public speaking. But the deepfake the voice was very good. He was perfect, he wasn't awkward. So when the employees heard the voice message, they were like, I don't think this is our CEO. Like they just had that thing and they were like, no, it can't be. And then they actually raised an alarm. And truly, it wasn't the CEO. The same thing for Ferrari as well. The person who was on the call on the other line had just this, I don't think this is the CEO, and then asked a very simple question. You recommended a book to me earlier in the year. What's the title of the book? And then, oh, you know the book, I recommended it to you. You should know the name of the book. And the person is like, nope, you tell me the name of the book. And then the attacker on the other side, of course, he couldn't have had prior knowledge to that conversation. And so he said, no idea. And that was how the person was also able to identify that that wasn't the CEO of Ferrari. The third case study referred to the Accenture one. That for me, that was perfect because there was a whole, everything that we talk about with social engineering, phishing, it was all there. Urgency, the deepfake was very good. But then what the employee did was, you know what, rather than what happened with the Hong Kong case, for instance, took a step back and said, you know what, we have a process when we're talking about financial, like releasing funds. I was like, you know what, I'll check back with you. Let me go through the normal route. So all of that, oh, you have to do this now, this deal will fall through, you know, things like that. But then the employee was wise enough to remember that there are processes that have been put in place for them to rely on that and say, I need to cross-check or just cross-reference this transaction before anything goes out. And so those are things you can actually do in trying to have some sort of way between me and my siblings. I always tell them if someone calls up and say, hey, this is Queen, I need $10,000, which I don't have, you can ask them a question and only me will know the answer to that question. So if the person cannot give you that answer, then no, it's not me. I would never call you up and say, hey, give me $10,000 or questions like that. So you can actually do that. For AIs, with everyone deploying some sort of AI tool, platform, LLMs, you need to have some sort of risk threshold when you're referring to AIs. Just the way you have a risk tolerance, you have a risk appetite, you need to have some sort of threshold and say, hey, this is what is acceptable. Whether you like it or not, it's coming into the workforce, it's coming into our homes, it's coming into our pockets. Like I said, if you have a smartphone, then you already have AI in your pockets. So the best thing for you to do is to have some sort of threshold and say, hey, maybe at this point, we can't take this risk, for instance, anymore. And then that would probably help you in trying to set up policies or guardrails when you're referring to LLMs. I can't stress enough for you to educate your workforce on the responsible use of AI and safe usage. They would use, employees, users, anyone, they would use these tools. So why not find some sort of ways to have guardrails for them to be able to use this safely? Before ChatGPT, I think before they leveled up, I think when they first released, there were a whole lot of people who were just, wow, this is fantastic. And then they copied a whole lot of sensitive information and popped it into ChatGPT. And you could actually see, and people were like, no, you don't put client information or personal information into ChatGPT. So people are learning right now to do better. But then if you do not inform them, they have no idea. Even when you deploy LLMs within your organizations, and you have probably bought maybe a license from one of these providers, you should also put guardrails and let them understand, hey, this is the limit. If you have to put something in, this is how it should be done. So you're not exposing or just sending out sensitive information. Another thing, AI penetration testing. It's a thing. You can actually test some of these LLMs. There was a particular test we did. I'm not a pen tester, but one of my colleagues did a pen test on a particular LLM that was being deployed, and the results were fascinating. You could actually see that by even changing something like a language, for instance, or even maybe just, remember I showed you a little bit about the Gemini prompt, for instance, but even changing languages, we're very used to English, maybe a few French, Russian, but using some very weird languages, not weird per se, but then using languages that have not really been, the LLMs would actually accept those prompts and then even spill out the information that they're not supposed to, just by tweaking a simple language. So it's nice to run whatever LLM you have to use, do some sort of testing, pen test on them. All right. It's a very nice space to be in when we talk about human and then AI collaboration. It could be perfect, it could be not so perfect. It's for you to find the right mix where you actually have humans working together with AI. If you're afraid that AI is going to take your job, then you should probably level up, as you can see. But then the best thing for you to do in deploying this is to put guardrails, have policies. There are lots and heaps of research and even guides. There's lots of policies on AI today. We have ISO, we have NIST, even OWASP. They have like top 10 LLMs. Vulnerabilities for you to look at. So take some time out, have a look at some of those research and find some sort of ways for you to make sure AI works for you and not against you within your own space. Thank you.
Thank you, Queen. We also have the app. If you have any questions, you can submit here. If you have a question in the room, just pop your hand up. I have a question for you. It's a little bit out of left field, so maybe you can use ChatGPT. What we're seeing at the moment, taking a step back from a geopolitical standpoint, you have like the Trump administration saying, you know what, just go for it. We're going to take away all the roadblocks, everything. And then you have on the other side of the world, you have the EU. We have, Southeast Asia like Singapore, Australia saying, well, we need to, contain everything that's going on around AI. Like, it's a bit of like a prediction question maybe.
Futuristic.
In your opinion and in your research that you've done, what do you see some of the great challenges for AI with cybersecurity, just the immense changing landscape from like a legislative standpoint and regulatory standpoint?
That's a very good question. The thing with all of those regulations, like it's nice to have regulations, but then if you think about ChatGPT was released, 2-3 years ago, and the moment you let that genie out of the box, it's not going back in. And most times, if you think about how technology has actually evolved, the tech space moves faster than bureaucracy, like government bureaucracy. So academia is always playing catch up. That's one thing I know. The government also, they're also playing catch up if you think about it. So the genie is out of the box already. The best thing you can do is to, before we get to the next stage, if you can predict the future, is to have those regulations and legislations in place and find some sort of way to enforce them. Because without enforcing them, then right now it's in our pockets, it's in our hands, you have access to it, there's really nothing you can do about it. It's just, you need to find some sort of way now to contain this and make sure it's safe for all.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. Are there any questions in the room? All right, so I'll just keep asking questions then. All right, so another one, you mentioned in your presentation just around user awareness and because that's really step 0, right? You need to have everyone informed.
Yeah.
Have you seen in your journey any really good cut-through presentations, because you need to hook them in the first couple of minutes sort of stuff, right? Have you seen anything that we can all take away and saying, you know what, this is the one, or copy it or something?
In terms of awareness, there's no one size fits all. That's the thing with awareness. So in trying to find that one presentation, you would actually you'll miss some people in the room. That's the truth. I am a visual learner. There'll be someone who probably likes, like I said, I love audiobooks. There are people I know who hate audiobooks. They like to have the feel of paper and then read something. So in trying to craft some sort of awareness program and things, you definitely miss a few people in the room. That's the reason why you can't have that one presentation. I always go for have things that are probably short and quick. You don't need you don't need 30 minutes for someone to actually understand. It's called awareness, not education. There's a difference, I like to say, there's a difference between awareness training and education. If I'm trying to make you aware that, hey, simple yellow marks on the step, you know that you would fall if you go on the edge there, that's an awareness. If I'm trying to make you educated, that's different from telling you how to craft maybe a very good step so it's not very vertical and things like that. So there's a difference. You need to understand all of that, then know where to put those things within the organization, talking to the different departments, the different people as well.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Any just last call on questions in the room?
Good for me.
No? Excellent. So, massive round of applause for Queen. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation.